Jungle Park. It's an incredibly obscure Japanese game that I get the feeling some Japanese people may be incredibly nostalgic for. The game is so obscure, in fact, that you can pretty much only find it on websites like archive.org. As for the gameplay, it appears to be purely explorational. I don't think there's an end goal aside from seeing all there is to see. Well, later it turns out I'm wrong about that. As you explore the island through awkward but unique controls, you'll keep running into these random funny animations that get really annoying really goddamn quick. Just move! The island, or park, features tons of minigames to discover. Did I just kill him? And to find most of these things, you either need to keep literally dragging the monkey everywhere, or use a map. I've actually taken my time to paint the areas I've explored green. As you can see, I've discovered most of the notable areas as I was genuinely intrigued by what the game had to hide. Plus, I just can't pass up on awkward 90s 3D renders bundled with an unusual game. Now, you'll run into these moments in the game where you're getting tons of Japanese dialogue. As it turns out, there is an actual story to this game. What I could gather from Google Lens translations is that most inhabitants of the island are under mind control by someone called Dr. Bedhead. Your goal is to reach some sort of computer, steal the real data, and something solar computer. Another point for Google Lens. Those who understand Japanese will keep getting hints on how to achieve said goal as they make their way through the island. Meanwhile, I had to awkwardly stumble back into the game after discovering that there's a story behind Jungle Park. Then I got incredibly frustrated at the random stupid monkey shit that this guy does at Bedhead's house. Realized you need to find an ID to actually complete the game, and stopped playing it altogether once I speculated that the ID is probably somewhere on this entire map. Oh, how naive I was. You can get the ID by playing this very specific animation when going to this window. I was quite surprised to see that you actually end up using that computer as opposed to seeing another small animation play. After a bunch of clicking around, I opened up a diary log. From the best I can do to interpret it, this includes Google Lens translating the French version of this game, it sounds like Bedhead was reading a book that listed various sports that he never knew the rules of. So the jungle park that he created is entirely based on misinterpretations. I guess that sort of explains why that baboon from earlier thinks that Bedhead is trying to mind control everyone. Seems like nobody is truly evil in this game. Just kinda dumb? When leaving Bedman's house, you'll get attacked by a fucking balloon mech, which will send the monkey flying onto the boat. And then, of course, the monkey will attempt to escape with this boat. But he kinda just crashes it. Then he falls into a fishbowl and eventually ends up floating back to his house. From what I can tell, some people consider this to be the ending of the game, since everything you've done is reset. In my deeper research, I ran into a translation project of all things, to which I ended up contributing a bunch of those awful Google Lens translations. Plus, the author had done a ton of research themselves. Seemed like they knew everything about the game outside of actually playing it. Shared links with me to various playthroughs. Thanks to those, I was able to find that ID. Even showed me some old websites that are still up somehow. And only at this point did I finally decide that it was time to data mine the game. After I went through all of the game's animations, I didn't really find that much more. I mean, if you really want me to mention this doll that's obsessing over itself, then sure, I'll mention it. I mentioned it just now. You do get a bomb from them that lets you blow up a building, by the way. Like, what the fuck was that? Found a fake-out death scenario for the monkey. Found and rendered a credit scene, which hints that there's a real ending yet to be found. Maybe. Found these 7-Up mushrooms, which I'm pretty sure are inaccessible. Otherwise, nothing too crazy was found from the data mining. You might be thinking that maybe you can do more with the computer, but seriously, whatever else you try to do on this computer doesn't really lead to anything. And it's not like these symbols actually mean anything. It's just there for aesthetics as some sort of Wingdings reference. Oh boy. So I ended up ordering a physical copy of this game. And then, as I was going through this very neat manual, I noticed these glyphs on the sign here. This row of glyphs kinda resemble those Egyptian ones, while this row seems to be entirely made up and syncs up with those seen on the computer. Then, I realized that both rows have the same number of characters, plus the same repeating pattern too. At this point, I could only make the conclusion that these symbols can actually be translated. Since I had no idea where to even start with this, I ended up asking a couple of subreddits where people almost obsessively decode stuff like this. The next thing I know, PTR47 translated these glyphs like it was nothing, which spell out rent a boat. That doesn't make sense in the context of the balloon, but it kinda makes sense in the context of the game. Someone might have simply included the wrong glyphs for this picture. As I was wondering if more of these glyphs could get translated, I ended up sending a bunch of screen caps of the computer to PTR47, who eventually came up with this. And then I added a few more things to it. So here it is, a partially translated language of a random Japanese video game that no one's ever heard of. Perhaps one day this will get finished? Alas, I did feel satisfied enough at this point, with only the credit screen and that 7-Up forest remaining undiscovered. Pretty sure those aren't accessible anyway. With that, I think we can finally put a... It never ends. It never ends! I found the 7-Up forest, kept reading the translated version of this page and decided to give it another shot. I forcefully smashed the monkey against the left side of the screen until eventually, I made it. The 7-Up forest. What's so special about this place? It makes a funny sound when you step on the mushrooms. So yeah, this could mean that the credit screen can somehow be reached. Maybe you have to beat all those clunky minigames? Maybe it's a lot simpler than that. I don't know. Regardless, I finally decided to put my journey with this game to rest. For real this time. Even though the game never saw wider success, it ended up on a ton of different systems. The Windows 95 release is the one I've been playing for this video. There's also the Sega Saturn and PlayStation versions, latter of which I've checked out very briefly. It was awful. And the Max Pippin version, which is actually identical to the Windows one. So don't get fooled like I did, because I saw some super smooth footage of this version of the game. Despite how intrigued I was, I am still mixed on recommending this game. You'll need a lot of patience to get through it. For example, you can accidentally stumble into a minigame that practically acts like a softlock. Also, all those random animations that just end up frustrating me while making others laugh. I don't know, maybe you'll love it. For those willing to put up with virtual machines to play this, here's how to get off the island. Place the monkey on the red button. This will allow you to rotate the island itself. From behind the house, there's a stack of planks that you can get. Then rotate the island back to its default position and very carefully drag the monkey to the top left so it can build a bridge. Otherwise, you'll get knocked off your feet by those random animations. After that, just go off and explore. Despite everything, this is an explorational game after all. There's an innocent version of this video available in the description. It was made before I dug deeper into this game, back when things were simpler. Oh yeah, and if the art style looked at all familiar to you, then this is the same developer who made... this game.